You're crazy, Linda. She's gone. Stop living in the past. That's what my ex-husband shouted at me the night I told him I still felt our daughter around. He slammed the door so hard the glass cracked, and I remember just staring at my reflection in it. A middle-aged woman with swollen eyes and no one left to believe her. My daughter, Emily, died 17 years ago in a hit-and-run. I buried every dream I had beside her that day. The police never found who did it. My husband, Mark, couldn't take it. He blamed me, said if I hadn't asked Emily to walk to the store that night, she'd still be alive. He left 6 months later, started a new family, new life. I stayed in that same house. Couldn't leave. Couldn't move on. Then last week, something happened that twisted every scar open again. At 2:03 a.m., my phone rang. Private number. I almost ignored it until I saw the name that popped up on my screen. Emily. I froze. The phone shook in my hand. That name had been gone from my contact list for years. I deleted it myself on one of those healing days therapists keep talking about. Yet there it was, glowing in the dark. When I answered, the line was full of static. Then a whisper. Mom. My throat closed up. It was her voice. I swear it was her voice. Older, slower, but hers. Emily? I whispered. Baby, where are you? The call cut off. I sat there in the dark, shaking, clutching my chest. For the first time in 17 years, I felt hope and terror at the same time. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I checked my call log. It was blank, like the call never happened. I called my carrier. They said there was no record of an incoming call at that time. That's when I started thinking, maybe someone was playing with me. 2 days later, I got a message. No name, no number, just a text. It said, "You were never supposed to know the truth. She didn't die by accident." I stared at those words until my hands went numb. My knees buckled and I dropped the phone. For 17 years, I'd lived with guilt, with nightmares, with pills that made me forget. And now someone was saying it wasn't an accident? I called Mark. He didn't answer. I texted him. Did you know something about Emily's death? He replied 3 hours later. Don't dig this up, Linda. You'll regret it. That was the moment I knew. Someone had lied to me all these years. And I was done being quiet. I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that text. I kept staring at my phone, waiting for another message, another call, anything that could tell me who was behind it. Nothing came. On the 3rd day, I drove to the police station. Officer Daniels was still there, the same man who handled Emily's case 17 years ago. His hair was grayer, his belly bigger. When I showed him the text, he sighed like I was a nuisance. Mrs. Howard, he said, sometimes people pull sick jokes online. It's probably spam. Spam doesn't know my daughter's name, I shot back. He shrugged. We closed that case. You should too. That sentence, you should too, hit harder than I expected. Everyone had told me that for years. Move on. Let go. Find peace. But how do you find peace when your child's blood dried on the pavement and no one cared enough to find out why? I left the station shaking. In the parking lot, I saw a man leaning against a black SUV watching me. When our eyes met, he turned his face and got into the car. No plates, just tinted windows. I started my car fast and drove home. When I got there, the front gate was open. I was sure I'd locked it. My hands trembled as I stepped inside. Nothing seemed missing, but something was off. The photo of Emily that had always sat on the shelf was lying flat, face down. My knees almost gave out. I whispered, Emily, if you're here, give me a sign. The phone rang again. Same blocked number. This time I hit record before answering. Who are you? I said. A man's voice answered this time. Stop digging, Linda. You lost one child. Don't make it two. Then he hung up. I dropped the phone. My breath caught in my throat. Someone knew about Emily. Someone knew enough to threaten me. I called Mark again, furious. He answered, sounding drunk. I told you to leave it, Linda. They'll hurt you too. Who? I screamed. Who killed her, Mark? He went silent for a few seconds. Then, quietly, people you don't mess with. Just let her rest. That was when the pieces started to click. Mark had always been doing side deals back then, shady construction work, under-the-table payments. He used to come home with wads of cash and excuses about extra hours. Emily once told me she saw him meeting someone in a black car outside her school. I'd brushed it off. Now, 17 years later, that same black SUV was outside my life again. That night, I didn't cry. I sat at the table with Emily's old photo, staring at her smile. And for the first time, I spoke out loud to her picture. I'm not afraid anymore, baby. Mom's going to find out the truth. Then I opened my laptop, typed in the name of a private investigator, and hit send. The next morning, I met Detective Sarah Collins, a retired cop turned private investigator. She had sharp eyes, a leather jacket, and the kind of calm that told me she'd seen worse than I could imagine. We met at a diner near my house. She listened quietly as I told her everything. The call, the text, the threats, Mark's warning. She didn't interrupt once, just took notes in a worn brown notebook. When I finished, she said, "If someone's contacting you about a 17-year-old death, it means something new happened. People don't resurface for nothing." She asked for every detail about the night Emily died. I told her how Emily was walking home from a friend's birthday at 9:15 p.m., how the car came out of nowhere, how no one saw the driver. The police said the cameras nearby weren't working that night. Sarah frowned. "Do you still have the case file?" I nodded. Every page. When she came over that evening, we spread the file across my dining table, photos, witness statements, reports. She went through them like a machine, scanning each line. After an hour, she pointed to one page. "Who's this?" she asked. It was a statement from Tony Reed, a construction worker who'd said he saw a silver sedan speeding away from the scene. He'd worked for Mark back then. My blood went cold. He was Mark's employee. Sarah nodded. "And this address, it's one of Mark's old project sites." That night, I sat on my porch, remembering how Mark used to come home smelling like gasoline and dirt. He'd always tell me, "It's just part of the job." I never questioned him. Now I wondered, was it part of something else entirely? The next morning, Sarah called. I checked DMV records. A silver sedan registered to Tony Reed was scrapped 2 weeks after Emily's death. No accident report. No insurance claim. Scrapped, I said. Yep. Quick disposal. Classic cover-up. I gripped the phone so hard it hurt. "You think Mark was involved?" Sarah paused. "I think he knew." That afternoon, I drove past Mark's new house. A big one in the suburbs, white fence, new wife, perfect lawn. I parked across the street and watched his son play basketball in the driveway. He looked about Emily's age when she died. Something inside me cracked. All these years, he'd built a new life while I'd been stuck in the ruins of the old one. When he came out to take the trash, he froze seeing me. "Linda," he said. I rolled down my window. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About how our daughter really died." He looked pale. "Don't do this here." But I didn't move. "You owe her the truth, Mark." He glanced around nervously. "Not here. Tomorrow. 5 p.m. The old pier." I nodded. He turned and went back inside without another word. That night, Sarah called again. "Be careful tomorrow," she said. "If he's nervous, he's hiding something. Don't go alone." But I had already made up my mind. 17 years of silence were ending tomorrow, at that pier. The air smelled like salt and rust when I pulled up to the old pier. The wood planks creaked under my boots, and the waves slapped lazily against the posts. It looked the same as it had all those years ago, the place Mark and I used to come when life was still bearable. He was already there, leaning against his truck, smoking. The wind whipped his hair, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Thanks for showing up," I said. He blew smoke and muttered, "Didn't have a choice, did I?" I stepped closer. "You could have told me the truth years ago." He finally looked up, and for a second I saw guilt, heavy raw guilt, in his eyes. "She wasn't supposed to die," he said. My heart stopped. "So you do know what happened." He dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his shoe. "Tony was supposed to scare her, that's all. Just a warning." "A warning?" I snapped. "She was 16, Mark." He rubbed his face with both hands. "It was a message for me, okay? I owed people money. I was in deep. I thought they'd just send a threat. Not that. I could barely stand." "You used our daughter as leverage?" "She was never meant to be hurt," he shouted, his voice breaking. "I swear to God, Linda, I tried to stop it. I begged them to leave her out of it." The sea roared beneath us, and my world tilted. I grabbed the railing to steady myself. "Who are they?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "A man named Vincent, old business contact. He ran money through one of my projects. I got greedy. When I couldn't pay, he sent Tony to send a message. After it happened, they cleaned it up. Paid off a few cops. Daniels." I cut him off. "Daniels?" "The same officer who handled the case." Mark nodded miserably. "They said if I ever talked, I'd end up like her." My stomach churned. I felt sick. physically sick, knowing that the man who was supposed to protect me had been part of the cover-up. You watched me mourn for 17 years, I whispered. You watched me fall apart while you built a new family. I'm sorry, he said. I thought staying away would protect you. I turned and started walking back toward my car. He shouted after me, Linda, don't go to the police. You don't know what they can do. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. My mind was buzzing with one thought. They killed my daughter and bought silence. When I got home, Sarah was waiting outside. She saw my face and didn't need to ask. He told you something, she said. I nodded. Everything. Or at least enough. Sarah crossed her arms. Then we play it smart. We get proof. Once we have that, we'll bring the whole thing down. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, looking out at the streetlight flickering on the wet pavement. For the first time in 17 years, I wasn't just a grieving mother. I was a woman with a purpose. The next few days blurred together. Sarah and I started digging into everything. Mark's old business records, bank statements, phone logs. It was like peeling back layers of rot. Every page revealed another lie. We found wire transfers to Vincent Logistics, small amounts, recurring, labeled consulting fees. When Sarah traced the account, it didn't lead to a business. It led to an offshore shell company. That's money laundering, Sarah muttered, scrolling through her laptop. Your husband wasn't just in debt, he was part of their operation. I stared at the screen. And Emily saw something, didn't she? Sarah nodded slowly. Maybe she found out where the money was going. Maybe she overheard something she shouldn't have. It made sense. Emily had always been sharp, too curious for her own good. I remembered how she once told me she saw a bag of cash in Mark's trunk. I'd laughed it off, said her dad was just doing extra work. I felt sick remembering that. 2 nights later, Sarah called. We've got a lead, she said. Tony Reed's address, the guy who drove the car. He's still in town. I met her outside an old trailer park at the edge of the city. The place smelled like oil and cigarettes. We watched from her car as Tony stumbled out of his trailer with a beer can in hand. Ready? She asked. I nodded. We approached slowly. He squinted when he saw me. Linda Howard? What the hell? I didn't let him finish. You killed my daughter. He froze, then laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Lady, that was a long time ago. You don't want to dig that up. Sarah flashed her old badge. We do, actually. He stepped back, eyes darting. You think you're the first one to come asking questions? People bigger than you already buried that story. You poke around, you'll end up next to her. My chest tightened. Why did you do it? He sighed, rubbing his face. I didn't mean to hit her. I just wanted to scare her, make her run. But she stepped off the curb too fast. I panicked. Vincent told me to keep driving. He said they'd handle the rest. I stared at him, my nails digging into my palms. And you just left her? He looked away. You think I sleep at night? Sarah took out her phone and started recording. You just confessed to vehicular homicide and conspiracy. Congratulations, Tony. You've just reopened the case. He lunged forward, trying to grab the phone, but I stepped between them. Don't you dare touch her. He froze, staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. You shouldn't have come here, lady, he said quietly. They'll know. Sarah and I backed away and got into the car fast. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. As we drove off, she said, We've got enough to start something. But we'll need protection. These people don't play nice. I looked out the window, clutching Emily's photo that I always kept in my bag. I don't care who they are, I said. They took everything from me. It's their turn to lose. The morning after Tony's confession, Sarah sent the recording to one of her old contacts, a journalist named Mike Henderson, who specialized in corruption cases. He promised to look into it quietly. By noon, things started to unravel fast. When I stepped outside to grab the mail, a black SUV rolled slowly past my house. Same model, same tinted windows. My stomach dropped. Inside the mailbox was an envelope. No name, no stamp. Just one word written in red marker. Enough. I called Sarah immediately. They know. Her voice went firm. Pack a bag. You're not staying there tonight. We met at a motel near the interstate. It was one of those places with flickering signs and stale cigarette smell. Sarah locked the door and pulled the curtains shut. Listen, she said. Tony's confession is powerful, but without solid proof of who ordered it, it's not enough to convict anyone big. We need something that ties Mark and Vincent together. I stared at the cracked ceiling. Mark has to have kept something. He was always paranoid, kept records for everything. Then we start with his office, Sarah said. That night, we drove back toward his neighborhood. His truck wasn't in the driveway. Lucky break. Sarah picked the lock in less than a minute. Inside, the place smelled like coffee and fear. Papers stacked everywhere. I started going through drawers while she checked the study. My hands shook as I flipped through old invoices, receipts, property deeds. Then I found it, a black USB drive taped under his desk. I held it up. Got something. Sarah grinned. You always hide the good stuff under the table. We plugged it into her laptop right there. Dozens of files popped up, scans of contracts, payments, emails. And one folder labeled Vincent. Inside were emails between Mark and someone using an encrypted address, v.corpconsult@protonmail.com. The messages discussed delays, unwanted witness, and one line that made my skin crawl. The girl was never meant to die. Handle it. Sarah whispered, This is it, Linda. This is the link. Before we could celebrate, headlights flashed across the window. A car had pulled into the driveway. Shit, Sarah muttered, closing the laptop. We have to go. We slipped out the back door, running through the yard. I could hear the front door open, a man's voice yelling, Mark? You here? It wasn't Mark. It was deeper, colder. We ran until we reached the car. My lungs burned, my heart pounded. Sarah floored the gas, tires screeching on the wet road. Only when we hit the main highway did she speak again. That wasn't Mark, she said. That was Vincent's guy. They must have been watching the house. I stared out at the dark road. They're not going to stop. Sarah nodded. No, but neither are we. The next morning, we met Mike at a coffee shop downtown. He reviewed the emails, his face pale. This is huge, he said. But if I publish this, you'll be in danger. I looked him straight in the eye. I've been in danger for 17 years. Publish it. The article dropped 3 days later. Front page of the digital paper. 17-year cover-up. Corrupt developers, bribed officer, and a mother's fight for justice. It went viral overnight. My name was everywhere. Linda Howard, mother who refused to forget. The comments were split. Some called me brave. Others said I was crazy, dragging up old ghosts. But I didn't care. The truth was out. By morning, Sarah's phone was blowing up. News channels, podcasts, lawyers, all wanting interviews. But not everyone was cheering. That afternoon, as we drove back from the station, a truck swerved into our lane. Sarah yanked the wheel, tires screaming, barely missing a collision. That was deliberate, she said, gripping the wheel. We pulled over, both shaking. My hands were slick with sweat. I looked back. The truck didn't stop. Just sped off. We reported it, but deep down we knew what it was, a warning. That night, Mark showed up at the motel. He looked terrified, not guilty this time, but hunted. Linda, he said, panting. You've started a war you can't win. I folded my arms. Then tell the police everything. He shook his head. You don't get it. Vincent's people have money everywhere. They'll walk. Not this time, Sarah said, stepping forward. We've got hard evidence, witnesses, even your confession. Mark turned pale. You recorded me? Not just you, I said. Tony too. Everything's in safe hands now. He sank into a chair, defeated. Vincent's going to come for me next. I can't protect you. I looked him dead in the eyes. You never did. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, phone in hand, waiting. Around 2 a.m., same time as before, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered. A man's voice, low and calm, said, You made a mistake, Mrs. Howard. My chest tightened. Who is this? You should have stayed quiet. Then a pause. You'll lose more than a daughter this time. Click. My hand trembled, but something inside me snapped. Fear turned into fury. I grabbed my keys and said to Sarah, No more hiding. We're ending this tonight. She tried to stop me. Linda. But I was already walking out the door. We drove straight to the pier. The same one where Mark had confessed. A storm was rolling in, thunder shaking the sky. Headlights appeared through the rain. A black SUV stopped in front of us. Vincent stepped out, tall, clean suit, calm eyes. The kind of man who thought the world bowed for him. So, he said, smiling faintly, the grieving mother finally grew claws. I didn't move. You killed my daughter. He smirked. Collateral damage. Before I could speak, Sarah stepped forward, phone in hand, screen glowing red. You're on live recording, Vincent. Keep talking. His smile faded. You think this will stop me? Not stop, I said quietly. Expose. Lightning flashed. And suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance. Police lights cut through the storm. Vincent turned toward his SUV, but officers surrounded him within seconds. Sarah had called them before we arrived, sharing our live GPS. He looked back at me as they cuffed him, rain streaming down his face. "You think you've won?" he spat. I stepped closer, my voice steady. "No, I think Emily just did." It took months for everything to settle. Vincent's arrest led to a chain reaction. Bribes uncovered, bank accounts frozen, officers suspended. Tony turned state witness to save himself. Mark, cornered by guilt and evidence, finally testified too. For the first time in 17 years, my daughter's name was spoken in a courtroom. Not as a forgotten case, but as the start of justice. When the verdict came, the judge's words echoed in my chest. The death of Emily Howard was not an accident, it was the result of a criminal conspiracy. I broke down, right there in the courtroom. Sarah squeezed my hand. For once, the tears weren't from pain. After the sentencing, I visited Emily's grave. The air was still, the sky soft gray. I knelt, brushing the leaves off her stone. "Baby," I whispered, "we did it." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost ignored it, until I saw the caller ID, Sarah Collins. I smiled faintly. For a split second, my heart had skipped again, like that first night, when I saw Emily's name. But this time, there was peace instead of panic. Life didn't magically heal. I still woke up some nights hearing that 2 a.m. ring in my head. I still talked to her picture every morning. But I wasn't the same woman anymore. I'd sold the old house, the one that held too many ghosts, and started volunteering at a shelter for women rebuilding their lives. Every time I met someone who said, "I don't think I'm strong enough," I smiled and told them what I now knew. You don't find strength. You build it, one painful truth at a time. One afternoon, while closing up at the shelter, Sarah stopped by. She handed me a small envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Something from the DA's office," she said. Inside was a check, part of the restitution money from the case. But attached was a note written in Emily's handwriting. My breath caught. It said, "For Mom. Keep going." I stared at it, trembling. Sarah frowned. "Where did they get that?" I smiled through tears. Her old journal, maybe. She always used to write that line. I looked up at the sky. The sunset painted the clouds gold, and for the first time, it didn't hurt to look at beauty again. I turned to Sarah. For 17 years, I was just surviving. But now I'm finally living. For her. As we walked away, I thought about that night at the pier. The same place where Mark had once called me crazy. His words came back to me. "You're crazy, Linda. Stop living in the past." Now I whispered back to the wind. "No, Mark. I just refused to die in it." And as the evening breeze rustled the trees, I could almost hear Emily's voice, calm, proud, and free.